Hey guys, it's Ashley, and today we're going to be talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first book in the ACOTAR series, for everybody who already knows. I'm a little late to this series, I'm sorry. I'm getting into it, I promise. I loved this book so much. I really did. I gave it 5 stars. It really exceeded expectations. Even though it was not what I had expected at all. The only thing that I knew going into this book was that there were fairies in it. So there's this girl, Feyre, and she kills a fairy on accident, and this fairy comes after her and tells her that A, you can either die, or B, you can come with me in Prythian and live with me for the rest of your days. And of course, she goes with him, and a bunch of stuff happens, and that's about the best that I've got. I'm pretty sure that the one name that you associate with this book is Rhysand, or Rhysand, but in the glossary of pronunciation in this book, it does say Rhysand, and that is how I'm going to say it. But you know what? I wasn't very fond of him, and I'm gonna get to that in the spoilery section, but I thought I'd just throw it out there anyways. I did love Feyre. I thought that she was really headstrong and really went for what she believed in. A couple of times she really pissed me off, she really aggravated me, but I got over that eventually. I really loved Tamlin. I know that A Court of Mist and Fury is the book that everybody starts hating on Tamlin and loving on Rhysand, but you know, I'm not there yet. So as of right now, I am Tamlin. Team Tamlin. Go Tamlin. Yes. The beginning of the story wasn't the best for me. I personally hated the beginning of the story. It wasn't that it started off slow or anything, I just hated the circumstances and everything that was happening at the point. From the point where she goes to Prythian onwards, I really loved it, so everything after that was like A+, need more, gotta have it. Honestly, that's really all I'm going to say for this book. It really went in a turn that I was not expecting at all, so if you haven't read this book yet, please leave because I'm about to get into some spoilery stuff and I don't want you guys to be spoiled. So come back when you have read this book and we can discuss it together. So bye you guys! So like I said, the beginning of the book was not my favorite. The beginning of this book was actually extremely annoying for me, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why. Even though some of the reasons to these things may have been explained later in the book, from the very beginning, before I knew anything, these were the things that really aggravated me. Why is Feyre the youngest and has to do all the work? Like, her older sisters aren't doing shit. Why did her mom, out of all 3 of the sisters, tell the youngest child to take care of the family? I don't understand it all. Why does her dad not give a shit whether they starve? I don't understand. And lastly, after all of this has happened, why does Feyre not just scream or leave them to die? As for the very beginning, I hated it. Now when she goes into Prythian, right, my first thought was, who the hell is Tamlin? Where is Rhysand? This is not what I had expected. The only name that you ever hear outside of this series, if you haven't read it, is Rhysand. And when we met Tamlin, and the whole entire book was about Tamlin, I was like, where is this guy? I had no friggin' idea. I thought that I had read the synopsis to a whole completely different book for a little while. Something that I wasn't crazy about, again, was when Tamlin busted into the house screaming murderer. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, just come and live with me. Why did you have to get her scared and then try to convince her to come and live with you? Because as we all know toward the end of the book, he needed her to come and live with him so that she could fall in love with him and break the curse. So why would you go in screaming murderer? I don't understand. So something that I thought was a little weird was the masks. So at first Feyre is told that a fairy plague has broken out and it really erupted during this masquerade party and now nobody can take their masks off. But in reality, it was really Amarantha's curse, so that this mortal has to fall in love with Tamlin even without seeing his full face. The thought of like everybody around you wearing an animal mask except for you just really like was weird. It was really weird. But I mean, if you think about it, it kind of gave way to that whole like seeing within thing, so it kind of worked. Tamlin just constantly asked her, why don't you like me? Or why don't you like us? Or why do you hate us? And I don't understand why Feyre just didn't respond with, because we were taught to hate you. Lucien really made me start liking the book. I really liked Lucien because up until this point I was still a little weary about it. So the part where Lucien goes and tells Feyre how to capture the cereal, but then later tells her that he hesitated when he heard her scream, I wanted to like rip his hair out. I'm like, Lucien, You told her you would save her. Why are you hesitating? Especially now that we know that there's a curse. Like, you have one chance to save this girl from dying and breaking your curse and keeping your kingdom intact. Yet, you're not gonna help her. Where is the logic? I know that a lot of these things that I'm saying make it seem like I don't like the book, but I really did. All of these things compiled up into the very end, and the end was what made me really like the book, honestly. I think that a lot of these things that I'm mentioning are funny in a way, and they definitely add to the story, and I just love like bashing it, but loving it at the same time. Like, it's great. One of the scenes that I loved was when Feyre went with Tamlin and they were in the meadow, and then Tamlin led her down to the Starlight Pond and they swam in it. I thought that that was adorable, and I really want to see a picture of that, honestly. Like, I'm trying to imagine what a pool of starlight looks like. Another one of those parts that I thought was really freaking weird was the Great Rite, okay? Don't get me wrong, I loved it, but I thought it was really weird. So Tamlin, in essence, basically, has to perform this ritual where he lets this, like, magic into his body and he becomes the hunter or the warrior or something. He goes after the female and basically, like, takes her, and then it's over and the food will harvest and the magic is gonna go across the land, and it doesn't, like, okay. But then they, like, force her to stay locked up in her room during this because they know that Tamlin will come after her at this point. She's out there getting food like an idiot because they told her to stay in. And she should listen to them because this is still stuff that she doesn't fully understand yet, right? And Tamlin comes after her. In the end, I liked the scene, but while I was reading it, I just felt really uncomfortable. So speaking of the Great Rite scene though, that scene was a really introductory kind of piece to all of the steaminess that's gonna happen later on. And even though I'm not a huge fan of anything resembling erotica in the closest way, or any kind of like really steamy scene, I have to say I did really enjoy these ones. I don't know if it was just because I love the characters, but I liked it. And I can't imagine what's gonna happen at Akamath. I remember seeing pictures about page 22 or something in Akamath, and I just remember like reading parts of it and being like, oh buddy, okay. So we're just gonna stop this talk now. We're just gonna move on. So when Feyre starts painting in the book, that is the best thing that could possibly happen to her in Prythian, honestly. I loved it when she would start painting and lock herself in her room all day and just paint to her heart's desire. And I especially loved the scene where she wanted to give a painting to Tamlin and he chose the one of the woods because it represented a part of who she was and what she spent part of her life doing. And I just really enjoyed it. I did. When we get our first glimpse at who Rhysand is, I hated him. I mean, he put a fairy's head on the statue, which wasn't good to begin with. We get our first glimpse of Rhysand during the Great Rite, but you don't really know it's him unless you know what he looks like or going into it, who he is, like I did. So I knew that was him, but our first real glimpse of him is at that dinner scene when he pops in and he's like, Amarantha and the curse and blah 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 blah, and Tamlin is hiding Feyre. All this stuff goes down, and in the end Rhysand makes Tamlin bow down to him on the floor by his feet so that he can beg him not to tell Amarantha about this girl. I hated him. When Tamlin sends Feyre back to the human world, like, you might think that you're saving her, buddy, but come on, we both know that she's gonna come running back. So when Feyre's back in the human world, I don't know if my feelings toward Nesta, because we end up finding out that Nesta had not really ulterior motives, but she wasn't as frozen and frigid and horrible as she seemed to be in the beginning. When Tamlin said that he had erased the memories of what happened from her family, Nesta actually still remembered. And so the entire time that Feyre's been gone, she's had to live with this and wonder what the hell is happening. Why don't my family remember anything that I do? But at the same time that I felt for her, I was still really pissed off because we found out that Nesta absolutely hated their father. She wanted nothing to do with him because he wasn't doing anything for them. But I mean, you could have treated your sister a little nicer. We know that you really didn't hate her, but at the same time, Like, you put her through such hard things. So we get that moment where after Feyre goes back over the wall, she finds Alice in the palace, and the palace is completely ransacked. Everybody's gone. Alice is the only one left, and she's collecting food for her younger nephews that she's watching after her sister and her husband died. Alice tells Feyre everything that she couldn't before, and my only thought after all of that was, God damn it, Feyre, you couldn't have said those 3 fucking words. You couldn't have just said, I love you, right before you left, right as Tamlin said them right to your face. You couldn't have just said, I love you, and just broken the whole curse. Come on. Gonna collect myself. But seriously though, seriously. So then Feyre goes on her quest to the court under the mountain to challenge Amarantha and pledge her love to Tamlin, even though it's too late to break the curse. And now, instead of just saying 3 little words, Feyre has to compete in death-defying trials to get Tamlin and the kingdom back. Like, you could have made this a lot easier on yourself, Feyre. You really could have. So the first trial comes. That one was probably my favorite out of all 3 of them, I want to say. She was running through the mud in the maze with that worm chasing her, and she ended up using the bones of his victims to impale him. And I just really, really loved that one. It kept me on the edge of my seat, and I really liked it. Then what I didn't like was afterwards, when she had her arm and it was like completely broken basically, and she was in so much pain. And so Rhysand comes along and decides that he's gonna help her, and he's gonna be like, look, I'm gonna heal your arm for you, but under one circumstance, you're gonna come and be with me in the night court for 2 weeks out of every month. And she looks at him and says, hell no. I really loved that Feyre was standing up for herself, but girl, your arm is broken. You're not gonna be able to do 2 more trials like this. So she knew that she had to come to a compromise, and he ended up healing her arm and giving her those weird tattoos that I didn't know how she got until now, but she has to go stay with him for 1 week out of every month in the night court. So I'm really interested to see what's gonna happen in Akamath. I know that there are gonna be a lot of steamy scenes between them, and I just want to know how that comes to be, because as of right now, she's really just in love with Tamlin, so I don't know what's gonna happen at all. So then the second trial comes, and Lucien is tied to the floor, and these spikes are coming down and are about to impale him and kill him, and Feyre has to read this scripture that tells her which of the 3 levers to pull to stop the spikes. But Feyre can't read. We come to find out that now Rhysand can talk to her through her tattoo, which is really, really weird. And so whenever she reaches for the wrong lever, the tattoo burns, so she ends up pulling the right one and she saves everybody. But it was just really weird. Not something that I had expected, but I mean, it works. It still works. Something that really broke my heart was right afterwards when Lucien came to visit her in her cell and told her the reason why he couldn't come and fix her arm last time. When he called out that tip to her in the maze, the queen took him and made Tamlin whip him. He couldn't move for days afterward because it was so horrible. So he couldn't come to her aid, and he was trying to apologize. I really felt for both of them. They're in this situation that's so horrible, and they can't do anything but take the choices and the options that they're given. So then Rhysand goes and starts drugging Feyre with fairy wine and making her dress really, like, scantily and with barely anything on, and makes her do lap dances right in front of Tamlin, all to make him really, really pissed off. So in the end, he goes crazy and attacks Amarantha. Like, was that the best way to go about doing this, Rhysand? Was it? Was it really? So then everything at the end happens really, really fast. So the third trial, she has to kill 3 innocent people. And then the queen will let Tamlin go, and the curse will be broken, and Tamlin is going to kill her. She kills the first 2 people with a little bit of a problem. I mean, it kind of like rips her heart in 2, but she kills them. And then she gets to the 3rd person, and it ends up being Tamlin. She can't go through with it. She can't go through with it. And I start freaking out a little bit, but then I'm thinking, but something has to happen. She can't just kill Tamlin, because then this queen will never leave, and then I don't know what's gonna happen in the next book. But then she sort of starts thinking about everything that she's heard since she arrived in Prythian, and she comes to this conclusion that Tamlin's heart was enchanted so that it was made of stone. Now, I don't really remember why this was the case. So she ends up taking a chance and stabbing him. and the dagger goes to his heart and it stops because his heart really is stone. I guess Amarantha did something to it. Amarantha unleashes her wrath on Feyre because she killed Tamlin, but then Tamlin, meanwhile, is not really dead, and he's trying to get up, and Rhysand is trying to help Feyre so that Amarantha doesn't kill her, but in the end, he gets thrown against a wall, and Feyre is like near dying when Tamlin finally gets the power and finally goes after Amarantha and kills her, and then comes back to Feyre, and Feyre is like pretty much just dead in his arms, and then apparently each High Lord grants Feyre, I guess, his wish, or whatever it is, his blessing, and then Feyre becomes High Fae. All of that happened so fast. Now, I wasn't really surprised about the High Fae part because I had seen fan art done about this series, and I noticed that Feyre had pointed ears, and whenever she was introduced in this book, she was a human, and I was thinking, well, something has to happen where she becomes fairy, otherwise, why would people be painting pictures like this? So I wasn't really surprised, but I was still happy in the end because that means that she's gonna live forever and she can be with whoever the heck she ends up with. I don't even know anymore. So then of course she and Tamlin have sex again, and then they end up going back to the Spring Court, and none of the answers as to what Feyre is going to do about the 1 week in the Night Court or what Tamlin is going to do about it are answered, and we live happily ever after for the time being. Something else that I want to know, I have heard so much about Feyre and Rhysand. I just want to know what happens to Tamlin in the next book. Like, does he just fall off the face of the earth or something? I just want to know. I want to know. I want to know now. But don't actually tell me, please don't. And that is going to be it for my ACOTAR book talk. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know that a majority of you have read this book, and everybody is telling me that I need to get to ACOMAF now, and I will. I promise you I will. But not right this second. Maybe in the next couple of months, because I'm scared I'm gonna be in a book hangover after I read it, because so many people are, and they tell me they are, and I'm just really scared, but I'm really looking forward to it at the same time. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to follow me on social media, I am AdashaBash12 on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads. All of my links are in the description below. I will see you next time. Goodbye!